Hey Maniacs, before we get to episode 2, Written in Blood, Brian Clapper Sweat Soup, we just wanted to say thank you for all the kind words and posts people have made. Especially on the Midsomer groups on Facebook and the subreddit, you have all had some very kind words for us, and we just wanted to say thank you right off the top. Also, we are very pleased to see that we're getting listeners not only from the UK and the US, but Canada, Germany, Norway, and Australia. We are touched and blown away by your insightful comments and love. It's nice to know that we're not the only maniacs out there. And now, on to episode 2. Enjoy.
Scum! Scumbag, 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 scum! The repetitive beat of the inner city drum. Scumbag, scumbag, scumbag!
Welcome to
Scum.
Midsomer Maniacs.
Hey Maniacs!
The podcast for people who are maniacs about midsummer murders. I'm Sarah.
And I'm Mark.
Caught in the middle of a drink.
Yep.
We're here for week 2.
Week 2, Written in Blood.
The first season of Midsomer has probably some of the best characters in the whole series. Like how I qualified that? Probably some of maybe. When I think about all of the funny quotes that we have around our house, all of the little things from Midsomer that have stuck in our minds, it's amazing how many of them are from this first season.
And so many things, you look back and you're like, oh, I wonder what episode this and this and this are in, and it's all the same
from the same episode. They crammed so much in.
So just before we begin, just a reminder that if you let your kids watch the show, they can listen to the podcast. But if they're too young for the show, they're probably too young for the podcast.
Pretty good rule of thumb.
Written in Blood was filmed in July and August of 97. This is almost a whole year after the pilot, which is why Troy's hair is so different.
It's not any better, though.
No.
It's like it's still split down the middle, but now it curls more.
Yep.
Like they told him not to get a haircut.
And he didn't.
And he didn't.
Then it was broadcast on the 22nd of March, 1998. So basically a year after the first episode.
And that gets us started on what is truly a midsummer. Based on a book by Carolyn Graham, of course.
But this book in 1994. So this is not the second book in the series.
Oh, so they skipped over some? Mm-hmm. I wonder why.
No idea. Once again, directed by Jeremy Silberson.
And co-authored by Anthony Horowitz again, like the first episode, like the pilot.
All the players are back that we know. Barnaby, Troy, Joyce, Cully, and Dr. Bullard.
Dr. Bullard.
But we have some amazing guest stars in this episode.
They stand out, right? So rather than going through the plot completely, we're going to say, if you haven't seen this episode, as usual, pause right now, go watch it, then come back. You will be able to follow this a lot better if you've seen the episode. And if you saw it when it aired originally, you're really old. No, I was in college, at least when it aired the first time. But you should have watched it recently, or if you got a good memory, you'll be fine.
Before we get into the stars or the plot or anything, I think the stars that we need to talk about with each episode are two things. One relates to this episode and the other doesn't relate to this episode, but will eventually. The first one is, this is a different village, right?
Yes.
So this is Midsomer Worthy. Mm-hmm. Usually when we cover these episodes, there will be a pub that is somehow related to the story of the episode, but first 2 episodes, no pubs.
Yeah, later on they fall in love with pubs. There's always some kind of aptly named pub.
But not this time.
Not in Midsomer Worthy. It's a place for writers' circles and bingo games and fetes.
Yes. We start off with the title card, like we did the last time with the sort of watery blood. And we are presented with bucolic fields of Southern Ireland in 1955 near Doro.
And a little boy picks up a shotgun, walks up to his dad's room. Oh, his dad is so gross. You don't even have to find out that he was sexually abusing that little boy later. You just know it because he's just so nasty.
We also named his child Liam, which I gotta say, it's not the best name.
We might have listeners named Liam.
I'm sure we do, but it doesn't fit this character.
Well, he changes it.
Okay.
So it's okay. Liam shoots his dad with a shotgun and then runs away.
Kablamo. Like right away. Cold opening. What cold opening?
No.
It's a hot opening.
But we don't get to see his dad dead. We
Nope.
just know that he's like, Liam. There's no doubt about what the little boy's name is.
Nope.
Because his dad shouts it at least 6 times.
And this little boy has blonde hair and
Blue
fair skin and
eyes
blue eyes. And we'll see later on why that's important.
So then we cut to the village.
Yes.
Right?
And there's no titles. Again, there's none of these cute little village illustrations.
No, they moved away from those, which I think is good because they certainly didn't match that title card.
I thought they were the whole first season.
No, they're just in the pilot.
I thought it was the whole first season. I may be wrong. I looked on 4 different streaming services to see if there were those credits, and they weren't there on anything.
They're not there.
We enter the village of Midsomer Worthy, and we see a sign with the village information on it, which includes the writer's circle, which we'll come back to, and their first meeting. Well, not their first meeting. Their next meeting on the 14th of June, 1997. Also on this board is a sign for Keep Fit for the over 50s.
And a Gilbert and Sullivan Society.
They are performing Pirates of Penzance. There's bingo at the Village Hall on the 11th of July. But so they made these 4 great signs, and then they kind of got lazy because the last sign says jumbo sale here.
No date, no nothing. Now, I have to tell you guys, so of course, we've seen the episode many times, but when we're prepping for an episode of the podcast, we each watch it and we watch it together. And this is the kind of Midsomer nerd that Mark is. He pauses the show so he can read the flyers on the village sign.
Somebody worked very hard for those flyers.
Not on the last one.
Not on the last one. But the Pirates of Penzance one in particular is very well done.
It has a pirate flag on it with Jolly Roger and everything.
Very well done.
Yeah. And
the people who created the material props for this episode worked very hard.
They did.
So.
And then we get this kind of montage of the main characters. They introduce all of the writers to us.
They're writing.
We get to see them in situ as they write.
So Gerald Hadley's cleaning lady leaves the house, and he's typing away on his old computer with the giant monitor, tick, 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 tack, tack, and he's writing a spy novel. So it's got gunplay, and there's all sorts of interesting things.
Okay, so speaking of gunplay, in my little research to find out interesting things, one of the things that I found out was the caliber of bullet that he claims this guy shot. The bad guy shoots at the good guy and he misses his shoulder by like 2 inches. I think he says it's a .35 millimeter, which is like elephant shot.
Oh.
Like it's so big, it couldn't miss you by 2 inches. I think the bullet is like 2 inches
I don't know
across.
about that because like a police gun's a .38.
Yeah, but that doesn't. I don't know a lot about guns, but
And a .22 is a small shell.
right. But I looked it up, and it said that whatever caliber he said, it was big. I
Okay.
should have made a better note of it.
Okay.
But anyway,
So then we're introduced to our next character, which is Laura Hutton, and she's writing her romance novel.
she's walking down the street imagining the silk nightshirts and stuff.
And the excitement of the kiss and all sorts of things like that. And then we are given another gift. Brian and Sue Clapper.
Honoria Lydiard is incredible. Second only to Honoria
Yes.
is Brian.
Yes. So Brian begins with his dramatic reading as he's typing. Now, I've written some things. I've even taught creative writing classes. And no point have I said, as you type, say it. But he's writing a play, so maybe.
Yeah.
So he says the following. Scum, scum, scumbag, scumbag, scum. The repetitive beat of the inner city drum.
As he drums on the table.
As he drums on the table. And then he finishes off with scumbag, 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 scum. And he
may as well be describing himself.
very pleased with himself, though.
But then Sue, his wife, who's wonderful. She's writing a children's novel about a dragon named Hector. And she's just so happy. And she has gigantic glasses.
And she's made Hector like a paper mache version. And she's doing the art of the book. She is by far the greatest creator we've seen so far.
And she leans over his shoulder to read what's on his screen. And she's so delightful because she's like, scum, scumbag, scumbag, scum. It's a little repetitive, isn't it?
Which is the most critical thing she says to him the entire time.
He's so mean to her all the time. Now, before we go on, though, we should say Brian is played by David Troughton. Is that how you would say his name?
Yes, David Troughton, who is the son of the second Doctor.
Yeah.
More Doctor Who. And he was on Doctor Who a whole bunch.
Yeah.
Probably some nepotism there. I understand. But and his sons, he has two sons that are actors and one son that's a cricket player. His son that's the actor, I think his name is Sam, that you probably know him the best for Chernobyl and The Forest, and he's been in a couple of things.
But so David Troughton is playing this despicable, sweaty, greasy, pedophile teacher. I mean, he's just so thoroughly gross. And played by an actor who is so talented. Like, he is one of the preeminent Shakespearean actors in the UK.
Absolutely. He's a very good actor. And I watched an interview with him about a play he's doing about home children that he saves as a widower in the north of England. And he's just the most wonderful, warm man you could ever imagine.
Which means he's just a really good actor because he grosses you out.
He's like, I'm surrounded by such talent. They all pull me along. And like it's not fake sincerity. It's real sincerity. He just seems to be a very nice man who in this particular version of Midsomer, he's in Others. He plays quite the scumbag.
Scum. He's one of several bit parts in this episode who then return in other episodes playing different characters.
Yes, definitely.
And very different characters.
So the next person we're introduced to you is Honoria.
Oh, Anna Massey.
Honoria Lydiard. So Anna Massey is just fantastic. Every show that you could ever imagine she's been in, especially ITV shows. She's in Lewis and Morse, and I mean, yeah. Has she been in Endeavour yet? Not that I can remember. Okay. I think because she died in 2011. She's very few people. I think only Thursday is the only one who's been in Morse, Endeavour, and Lewis. Yeah. So. But she's so great. And she's so thoroughly nasty again. But she's a different flavor of nasty. She is. First of all, she has a giant typewriter. Now, you're going to learn. I'm a typewriter nerd. My Twitter handle is typewriter. I like the typewriters. I have too many typewriters. And I was desperate for her to, I was like, push the camera in so I could see that type. No, they don't. So I don't understand something about their house. Okay. Later on, she says she's working in the study. Mm-hmm. But this is clearly a dining room. Yes. And she is at the dining room table. So does she have multiple rooms that she writes in? Well, their study may have a big table in it. A lot of old
houses like, what is it called, Gresham Hall, where they're at?
Yes, they're at Gresham Hall.
Yeah, a lot of old houses like that had big studies that were libraries, and they had big tables in them like you would in a library.
But this, like, there's a place to put dining stuff in the back.
Like a buffet or something?
Yeah, like a buffet. So I think, I don't know. But to say that the house is disarrayed or in disarray, never mind the fact that there's a body upstairs.
Oh.
But Honoria's typing away.
Anna Massey, another interesting thing about her that I can't ever get over is that she was married to Jeremy Brett, who in my head is Sherlock Holmes. When I think of Sherlock Holmes, it's Jeremy Brett's face I see.
He's in the long-running Sherlock Holmes series that is very true to the books.
He's quintessential. And yeah, they were married for 4 years.
Yeah.
That must have been fun.
That must have been quite a ride.
So we meet Honoria, and then we meet her.
And she's writing a family history
of the Lydiards.
It's the Lydiards, and she lists off a bunch of Lydiards.
Reproach.
A bunch of Lydiards, and including her favorite, her brother Ralph. And we meet her sister-in-law,
Amy.
And this is where, when I was watching this the first time, and we'll get into Honoria's insanity later on, but this is where I noticed Ralph died. They have no children. Mm-hmm. Honoria isn't going to marry anybody.
No.
And Amy is not going to marry anybody again.
No.
So the Lydiard name is dying with these two ladies.
Yeah.
It's over.
There are no other siblings. Honoria and Ralph were it, right? As far as we know.
That's as far as we know. And I think that plays into her insanity later on.
She's plain crazy. You can give it whatever reason you want. I don't think anything explains it, but I'm sure it contributed to it.
So now we're moved to the writers group, which is really an amazing and beautiful, inciting incident that is the biggest red herring ever. The whole writers group thing it's not needed. And I think it's great how they make us concentrate on the writers group.
Yeah.
But in the end, it's of little value to the main crime. There's lots of crimes going on here.
But it's a weird mix of people. You've got somebody writing a romance, somebody writing a family history. Amy's not writing anything as far as we know, except maybe some poetry that she mentions.
Just goes.
But probably because Honoria makes her. Are you going to tell Honoria no?
Yeah, no, I'm not.
And then you've got Brian and Sue. They're just this weird mix of people. And Gerald, who in a small village, I guess you don't have as many people to choose from about who you're going to hang out with. And it's clearly an open writers group. Anybody's welcome to come. They've got the flyer on the sign and everything. But wow, could you get a more unlikely mix of people?
So now I want to get to something that really upsets me.
Uh-oh. Okay.
Brian is horrible. He's horrible to his students. He's a lech.
He's horrible to his wife.
Lies to his wife. He tries to get it on with teenage girls. He is problematic. Okay, I'm not saying he's not. But I have to tell you, the biggest problem I have with him is how he sits in this scene.
Yes.
I just want to scream at the television for him to sit up.
Well, the couch is eating him.
I just, sit up! Sit up!
He can barely drink out of his glass of wine because he's so slunched over in that chair.
Honoria needs to get the finger out and be like, sit up!
Proper posture, Brian. So they're looking for a guest writer to bring.
So, and they throw out all these crazy names like Forsythe and a whole bunch of other people. And they settle on Max Jennings. And Gerald freaks out.
Yes, he does. He's like, no, I won't have him in my house. I mean, there's no subtlety here at all. And everybody else is so dense and self-involved that they're like, well, let's just vote. I vote for him. Obviously, Gerald's traumatized.
For Laura, who's completely in love with Gerald, who's like, anything Gerald says goes.
Yes.
So they vote to contact him because Brian has to get home to do his marking. What exactly does he mark in his little class?
I don't know. Because all they do is shake it out and improvise.
Sticky tape. We'll get to that.
One must assume that he teaches classes other than the one that we see.
I would assume so. We're transported
Yeah, because they write the letter to invite Max Jennings'
house instantaneously.
He's married to Mrs. Hudson.
And she is phenomenal.
Of course she is.
First of all, I have a question. Carolyn Graham wrote this with, what's his name? What's the other guy's name?
Anthony Horowitz.
Anthony Horowitz. These are known writers, okay? They understand the publishing game, okay?
Yep.
How many books has Max Jennings sold? Because he lives in like a $5 million house.
Well, I think we're supposed to think that he's a best-selling author. Like a Grisham kind of author.
But still, he only talks about one book.
Well, because that's his most recent. Was it Faraway Hills?
I guess so. Yes, Faraway Hills.
He's married to Selena, who's played by Una Stubbs, who is, she's Mrs. Hudson in Sherlock. And she's an absolutely over-the-top, insane, jewelry-wearing, swimsuit-wielding alcoholic. He says, isn't it a little early to be having a drink? She goes, well, I'm awake.
She's absolutely fantastic. He gets the invite on the Midsomer Worthy Writer's Circle.
Stationary.
Written
by Brian because Gerald refused.
Which is says the following.
Oh my gosh, you looked at that?
Midsomer Worthy Writer's Circle, The Bungalow, Midsomer Worthy, near Coston, Midsummer. And Gerald's name is listed as chairperson.
Yep.
And so now he's like, hey, I'm on this because I want to talk to Gerald. And we don't know why. And Selena's guzzling tomato juice and vodka. This scene, there's a comic by XKCD. I'll put a link in it in the show notes, but it's created a shorthand among us that when you talk about technical details of filming, like I do sometimes, because I teach some of this stuff, it's called Greenland.
Yeah.
Okay? I'm going to go Greenland here for a second. So
Mark will ruin an episode or a movie by talking about some tiny little filming technique that nobody else notices. That's Greenland.
Okay. So we're in Greenland right now.
Okay.
This scene is so dark. The entire thing is just...
Well, the whole episode is kind of dark.
The whole episode is kind of dark. Then he goes... She goes, why would you even want to go there? And he goes, as a matter of fact, I do. And then he goes into his study.
And speaks to himself.
As
a matter of fact, I do. Dun, dun, dun.
So now we're whisked away to the Barnaby's home, which looks nothing...
No, wait.
What?
Okay, because we just talked about Max Jennings, and I can't not tell you... So you look on IMDb and you look up these people's names, right? The actor's name is John Shrapnel.
Yep.
Which is an action name if there ever was one.
John Shrapnel.
Okay. So I thought, that can't be his real name. Who's got a cool last name like that? Lo and behold, it is his name. His parents were named Shrapnel as well.
There's the Yorkshire Shrapnel.
Yeah. But it does have an origin.
Okay.
The reason why his family name is Shrapnel is that he has an ancestor who invented the exploding cannonball.
Wow.
And changed his own name to Shrapnel.
That's fantastic.
Like, you invent something and then you say, you know what? I'm going to change my name.
He has told that story to young women at parties.
And they have swooned.
It
just made me think, like, what could I invent that I would change my last name to? You know, be like something so lame like app. And then forever, our children and our grandchildren, our great-great-grandchildren would be app or something. Yeah.
Well, it kind of happened with my family, sort of, because I'm only tangentially related to Alexander Graham Bell, but...
Yeah, but his name was Bell before he invented things that included bells.
But then the company became Bell.
Yeah. But Shrapnel... That's fantastic, isn't it?
And that's guts too. That's like, I'm going to change my name.
Mm-hmm. It's like Colonel Sanders becoming Colonel Chicken Wing.
Captain Chicken Wing.
Yeah.
Next, we're on to the Barnaby house that looks nothing like the Barnaby house did before.
No. And Cully shows up unexpectedly with a mute.
No, hold on. Joyce says... If somebody doesn't get murdered soon, you're going to get tetchy.
Yeah. Which,
in her new hair.
contributes to the theory that she's the one who arranges all these killings just to keep Tom busy and engaged.
So Cully and Brad show up, and okay.
Brad's a director but doesn't speak.
Okay.
I think they just didn't want to pay him.
Clearly, Brian is a lech and a horrible person, but Brad barges into the house before Cully, and it drives me insane.
So one guy has bad posture and the other one cuts in front of people.
Oh, I cannot imagine doing that. It's just so horrible.
You're so Canadian. And they bring Kelmowski, the kitten.
Yes,
who
Brad in
Joyce
his
and,
shorts. Did
yeah.
you notice he was
Well, they're
wearing...
about to travel. So
Yeah.
Joyce and Tom are going to take care of Kelmowski.
Yes. The idea is that Cully will bring him some vodka.
Yeah. Because he's such a drinker.
I guess.
You never see that, but...
Honoria heads off to the antique shop.
The very dark antique shop.
Thing is dark. in
Owned
this
by
episode.
Laura. It's just full of, pie crust tables and
Laura Hutton crying her eyes out.
crying her eyes out.
It's just allergies. No, Tom is allergies. You're unrequited love.
Yeah, get it straight. Well, because, she's seen the prostitute going to Gerald's house the night before. She's still upset.
But she doesn't say that to Honoria.
No.
So she says she has some new newspapers from the 70s for Honoria, including the Navy News. Now, the Navy News...
Does it exist?
It does exist.
Oh.
It was founded in 1954 and is still going today. It's a very well-respected Navy newspaper.
I didn't know.
It's the official newspaper of the Royal Navy.
Well, Honoria likes it so much, she steals one.
She just takes it.
And goes straight to Gerald's. Knock, 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 knock. But he's not home.
Now, Gerald's house is Pulver's Rest. And a pulver...
That was Plover.
Plover's Rest. A plover is a plump-breasted bird of the shoreline bird family.
I'm glad they're plump-breasted.
So it's like Robin's nest or something.
Yeah.
Right?
Plump-breasted, kind of like Gerald later.
Yes. So Honoria goes over, knocks on the door, and Brian, who's getting back from annoying his students, is like, the meeting doesn't start at 7:30.
Yeah, because all of a sudden we are on the night of the writer's circle that Max Jennings is coming to. We have jumped time somehow.
So then we switch to Brian, who goes in the house and does nothing but criticize his wife.
Yeah, he wants to go take a bath.
He
needs
criticizes
a bath.
the dragon. He criticizes her for reading while he's out, and you should bring me some tea in my bath. Who? Okay, I don't know.
It's a Brian thing.
We're not UK people.
No.
We're not. But do you rush home after a day of leching at school to have a bath?
You're talking to a pretty narrow audience there. Attention all lechers. Do you enjoy a bath right after work?
It's just so
this is
gross.
one of the things I've never understood about UK homes, and folks can tell us in the comments, tweet us, whatever. But what is your problem with showers? Why is it always a bath?
Well, it's because there's no water pressure in the entire country.
Who has time to fill a bathtub every time you need to get clean?
Brian, apparently.
Maybe that's why he's so filthy and gross all the time.
Brian soup. Ugh.
Ooh, that may be the grossest thing you've ever said. Brian Clapper soup. Clapper soup. That's a thing now. So it's the night of the writer's circle. Max Jennings comes. And
hold on, Gerald meets with Amy and says, don't leave me alone with Max.
Right. And then Max maybe delivers and we only get the tail end, but it may be the most boring talk we've ever experienced. Like, this is an exciting writer. He writes like thrillers and these big sweeping novels that are so moving. And yet his advice to them about writing is that writers need stamina and luck. Like Snorefest.
And it's very practiced. It's like, da-dun, 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 da-dun.
Well, I'm sure a writer like he is probably gives a lot of talks like that at signings and whatever. But it's not engaging. I can't imagine sitting around, surrounded by people on sofas and
Well, it
stuff.
certainly didn't get Brian to sit up.
No. No, he's still slouching,
And then he takes out a cigarette and starts to smoke.
which Honoria is going to hate.
Yep. So there's so much going on under the scenes in this scene.
It's not really under anything.
No,
It's
that's
super
true.
overt and awkward. There's like any questions, and there's crickets and staring and shifty eyes. And then I have a question. No, you don't get to ask the question because Honoria is going to say, I'm writing a history of my family, the Lydiards.
Like
blah,
she
blah, blah,
totally
blah, blah.
interrupts. So there's a
So
point later
rude.
on, and we'll talk about it, where she says that person is so rude. She's rude.
Oh, she's rude. She and Brian can have a rude-a-thon. A rude out or something. I can see who's
She's
ruder.
like, Amy, home.
Yeah. Well, and the whole like leaving, right? So Amy has promised that she won't leave Gerald alone with Max, and she practically shoves Max out of the house.
She does the right thing. If Amy had succeeded, if Max had not forgotten his gloves,
People would still die.
people would still die, but
Maybe not Max.
it would be Gerald who would be in. No, Gerald would survive. So okay,
Gerald would live.
If he
Max
did-
would live.
Yeah, everybody would live.
No, not everybody.
Who wouldn't live?
Well, Gerald would still be dead because Honoria kills Gerald, not because of Max, but because of the
Okay,
newspaper.
so Max would be alive, but not Gerald.
Right.
And then she would try to kill Amy,
Amy.
like she does at the end. But that would be like
Only
that takes
Max would
away
be
half
saved.
of. Yeah,
Yeah.
Max would be saved.
Yeah. Well, don't forget, though, that we get another Brian rant at the writer's circle where he says that writing is elitist, and he's always like rapping and improvising
rapping.
and snapping his fingers and
It's
clapper
just-
soup.
Like, Gerald wants everybody gone. Honoria is so mean. Gerald and Max get left alone together because he comes back for his gloves.
His gloves in July,
First,
the
July
1st of July,
Yes,
he needs gloves.
I guess.
That is so awkward and intentional.
And then, so he comes back in and he asks for a chance of a nightcap, and it actually turns to be that it's like they're almost tender to each other here.
Well, I think Max wants to apologize for what he's done.
And I think
Gerald's
Gerald
not-
wants to kill him.
Gerald wants to kill him. He's like, well, if you're here, I guess I have my opportunity.
Yep.
Because he really did want to kill Max.
Yes.
And he wanted Amy to prevent that from happening. They give you this feeling that Gerald's afraid of Max, but what Gerald's actually afraid of is what he'll do to Max.
Later, he leaves drunk.
He looks
stumbling
drunk.
around.
Yeah.
Gets in his car. And how we know this is because Laura, the creeper,
She's skulking around.
I happen to be outside of Gerald's house every night.
She's out. Brian's out. Like, really, everybody who lives on the square is out skulking around, hiding from each other in the middle of the night.
And Brian comes home. It's really late, and he's trying to be quiet. And then somebody goes by the car
Yeah.
on the other side.
We don't know who it is that goes by. We assume it's probably Laura since she's out skulking, but we find out later it's not Laura. And then we cut to the next morning with poor Mrs. Bundy.
And the housekeeper arrives, and this is the first of many housekeeper findings of bodies.
Did you notice she didn't change clothes between the first time she cleaned his house and the second time, which
Nope.
is like a month apart?
She has one costume, and that's what she has.
It's that green polka dotty leafy top, whatever it is.
She notices a couple of weird things.
The wedding photo.
Goes down, the light is on. She walks by the portrait on the wall, and this is the first time we see the portrait, which, if anybody's paying attention, goes, oh, it's Liam.
Yeah. And then she sees his naked feet.
Yes. And then the candlestick, and then the empty wardrobe, and then she loses it.
Troy asks her, well, did you go in the bedroom?
Wait.
Of course I didn't go in. I'm sorry. I love it. She screams at him.
The interview itself has to be dissected. But before we get there, so the Midsummer Constabulary arrive.
Yeah.
Now, they have a logo on
You're
their
such
car,
a nerd.
right? They have a logo on their car, and what animal is in the middle of that logo?
A badger?
It is a badger. That is a Midsummer trivia question.
There you go.
Okay.
You could win a prize with that one day.
And I thought, oh, Barnaby's going to be less snarky in this part. No, as soon as they get inside, Troy's like, it's just in here. And Barnaby's like, oh, with the blood and the police photographers.
I wouldn't have noticed. Yeah. Yeah, and then Mrs. Bundy freaks out when they
we
interview
got Bullard in his white suit, and then there's people in green suits. I don't understand the white suits and the green suits. They go over the details of the movie, then they interview the cleaning lady.
Yeah.
And
But Gerald is naked.
Naked. Starkers.
Now, one of our favorite things to talk about, because we watch a lot of murder shows, is corpse acting. And he certainly got a break. Because all he had to do was keep his feet still.
His feet and his sort of one butt cheek.
No, it doesn't even go up that high. I think it's like calf, maybe.
Maybe.
And they might not even be his. They could be somebody else.
It could be.
He might have had a foot double.
It could possibly not even be Gerald.
And you can hardly see that there's blood on the carpet because the rug is so busy.
Yes.
I was like, is that blood or is that the pattern? It's obnoxious.
Barnaby and Troy asked the cleaning lady what happened, and then she says that she found him, and Troy says, did she go into the bedroom? And she goes, of course I didn't go in. But she clearly goes in.
Well, like a step. Just far enough to see his feet, and then I think to follow the line of his feet up, because she sees his head is obliterated.
Yes.
They can't even initially
But she had
identify
to go into
the body.
Room. You have to admit she's in the room. She crosses the threshold.
Okay.
A double check.
She's in the room, but if she didn't, she couldn't do that line.
Yes.
And it's...
Of course, I didn't bloody go in. She overacts all over the place here. It's all fantastic.
It's just one of those infamous lines, though. It's a Midsomer thing.
Yep. So they establish it's not robbery and that there's no car.
Even though all the clothes are gone from that wardrobe that's standing empty, that Troy points out to Tom in case he missed it. Of course he didn't.
Of course he didn't.
Yeah.
Okay. It's more to make sure that the viewer didn't miss it. Next, they interview Mrs. Clapper. And
Sue.
Sue is fantastic.
She gives him coffee.
First of all, she has coffee.
And giant glasses.
And she gives them a whole bunch of exposition.
Yeah, she does.
Included foreshadowing exposition. She says, we don't go to the Lydiards since Ralph died because the place is like a morgue. Which it is.
Hint.
She gives them a ton of info, and then she totally lies for Brian and lies very badly.
Yeah, she says he went to bed and he didn't get back up again, which we know he did.
But she does solve what happened to Gerald's car.
Yeah, it was stolen in Coston. Like, what, a week before?
Yes.
Right, on the infamous big-breasted night.
The infamous big-breasted night. So off we go to Coston Comprehensive, which I tried to find a link or a description of the school somewhere. But if you know where that school is, I'd love
what
pictures.
School
Yeah,
they
what
use.
schools it actually is. Troy says he went there from 83 to 90, making him a child. And then, yeah, this is another Troy bad driving incident, but this is not bad driving. Bad driving is being slightly upset or tense or full of anxiety while you're driving. He drives on the wrong side of the road.
Yeah, it's a little over the top, eh?
And they go and talk to the janitor for like 2 minutes, and then we never see the janitor again.
No.
I don't know why the janitor scene is there.
It was just to establish that Troy went there to school and that he's remembered there.
I guess.
And then we see Brian in his class.
Is it in a gym?
It's like a gym with a stage.
I guess.
Like multi-use
It's got lots
room.
of risers.
Yeah, he's got the risers out, and he's doing like shakeout exercises and voice exercises with his students. Typical drama teacher.
Yep. Shaking it out.
Yep.
Pretend you have sticky tape on your fingers.
Yeah.
He's sweating profusely.
We have to talk about the laugh
Well, we'll get to the laugh.
because he's already done it, but it's when he uses it in combination of reference to Edie that it gets really creepy.
Before that, he's sweating. And then he says, you have to reach out and reveal.
And then he says, get into a dramatic pose.
And Edie, who...
The young blonde student, short skirt, midriff, all that good stuff.
I have to say, the kids in this scene and all the kids' scenes, they act very much like actual teenagers in class.
You'd know because you teach high school.
I teach high school, not like Brian. And the way they talk, their cadence, the
way they taunt him.
And stuff is very much like actual high school students. They did a very good job there. He also has his t-shirt tucked into his sweatpants.
Yeah, why is he wearing sweatpants? But he already has a sweat stain when they start the scene, right? Like mid-boob sweat stain.
Yep.
But when he tells them to get into a pose, Edie throws her leg up around the waist of one of the male students and he kind of swoons. And Brian turns around and he's like,
Yep.
Good.
Brian Clapper,
nice
boob
pose.
sweat soup.
Nice pose, Edie.
It's so creepy. But then I gotta tell you, he does a little bit of decent teaching.
Yeah, he does.
He does.
With a coup de théâtre.
Coup de théâtre.
He clearly knows what he's talking about. It's his execution that's so gross, right?
And they all get into character, and Edie kind of taunts him again, and he loses his guard, and then it's just chaos.
Yeah.
And then that's the moment when the woman from the office,
The principal, secretary, whatever. Yeah.
shows up and say that the cops are here. And he does some good acting there.
Yeah.
Right? And
He tries to kind of play it off like you would in front of your students. You don't
so
want them to be alarmed.
when they tell him Gerald's dead, he actually reacts like a person who did not kill Gerald.
Yeah, I think so too.
But then he says the weirdest thing. He says, when Troy asks him something, I forget exactly what, and he goes, my yay is my yay, and my nay is my nay.
Because he's answered the question already, and they're asking him again.
And he turns to say inspector to Barnaby, like, I'm done talking to you.
And my yay is my yay, and my nay is my nay is a reference to Matthew 5:37.
Oh, it's a biblical reference.
Yeah, from the King James Version. He's well read.
He is.
He knows French theater terms like coup de théâtre. He knows his Bible.
But he seemingly doesn't care about his wife or anything but his own sort of...
Gross lechiness.
Yes.
And his rapping and improvising.
Yes. So his wife sends a message, but it's too late that the cops are coming.
Yeah, he doesn't know whether she's lied for him or not and given him an alibi. But then we go to Gresham House and we get to see Honoria in her home environment.
And she is a little bit prickly.
She is. They walk up and she thinks they're soliciting something or other. And she's like, can't you read my sign? No hawkers, no circulars. Now, the sign is maybe, 5 inches by 5 inches. It's like a gray with gray lettering on it. And her giant bob haircut is blocking it anyway. I don't know how they could have ever seen this tiny sign on this big house. She
says, go away or I'll call the police. Barnaby's like, we are the police. And they go inside and talk. She says, I didn't know Gerald. No one knows Gerald.
Amy says, I made us cocoa. We had cocoa and went to bed.
She is nasty to Amy immediately. She treats Amy like a servant, even though it's her sister-in-law. And I have a question. It later comes out that Amy has no money. Mm-hmm. I don't understand why Amy has no money. So she married Ralph, who was the older brother of Honoria. Mm-hmm. So he would have the bulk of the estate.
So you think he would have inherited everything and she'd have the money and Honoria would be mooching off of her.
And they have a place in Spain, which is where he dies.
Well, they were trying to make a life in Spain, she says.
Houses in Spain don't come cheap.
Well, you don't know. They could have been in a shack in Spain. Do you know for sure that Honoria is younger than Ralph?
It wouldn't have mattered. It's the male heir.
Well, that's not always true in every family.
I would think that even if he did die, he would have left some money to Amy.
He's pretty young.
Suppose.
When he died. She's been living there for a while.
I guess. So then she says to Troy that, she just gets up.
Oh, yeah, she's just done.
I'm done. And Barnaby's like, you got to stay around and answer some more questions. And she says, this is her pitch.
Yeah.
So she says the Lydiards are part of the very warp and woof of England. They are beyond reproach.
And leaves.
and leaves. And Troy goes, the warp and what? And she goes, woof, and leaves. How they filmed that without laughing, I do not know. Because Anna Massey chews up that whole scene.
She does. She's so good.
She just must have been crazy. Amy says it's all her fault. She was supposed to keep them apart from each other.
She promised.
The main suspect now is Max, and Max is nowhere to be seen. Honoria watches Barnaby and Troy leave from the window of a locked room that we will investigate later. Next comes the last and I think the better scene with Selena Jennings. They go to see Max's wife, and they do the best interview of a drunk housewife ever, because
she has an entire bar sitting next to her on
she
that
has
cart.
a booze cart. It's on wheels.
Yeah.
Right? She says Max is big in Denmark. Okay? She slurs her words so well. Like she knows what drunk people sound like, and introduces
Bouncing Barbara
Neal. And when she says Neal, she kind of looks on the ground like, oh, she kneels.
But then Troy does the handling melons every time he says Bouncing Barbara, is his hands out in front of him.
Right in the middle of the interview, she basically says, I don't know what this has to do with me. She gets up, takes off her wrap, and dives in the pool.
Yeah, in her jewels.
Barnaby and Troy head back to town. They need to stop and buy a book. Barnaby says, stop here. And Troy doesn't pull into a parking spot or up on the curb. No,
or even slow down and put on his blinkers. He just slams to a halt.
Slams to a halt. Guy goes around him. You idiot! And they will go buy the book that Max Jennings wrote at the bookstore.
So Joyce can read it.
Yes.
Because Barnaby's not going to read it.
No, Barnaby's not there. Not going to read it. And we go back to a candlelit dinner at the Barnabys. They eat with candlelight a lot.
Where Tom comes down with cooties.
Is this a normal thing in England?
I don't know.
Eating?
Well, Cully's there. No, Cully's not there.
Cully's in Poland.
Maybe they're
with
for the cat.
Brad. Maybe.
But this is the first time that Barnaby's got the crazy cootie itch thing going on.
But so there's a great Barnaby characters thing here where he says there was no photos of the woman, Gerald's wife, anywhere in the house, just the one photo. And Joyce is like, well, how many photos do you have of me? And he goes, I have 2 in my wallet. And you just, he's just the nicest man in the world. Where's the cat? They go off to bed. I'm not ever going to let the cat sleep in the bed. And then there we go. Joyce is reading the book and the cat's in the bed.
You know what's funny about the cat is that Cully says it's part Russian blue. We also have a cat who's part Russian blue. Her name's Telly. But Russian blues are known for being kind of hypoallergenic in terms of cats.
Yes.
Like if you have some allergies to cats, that's what they suggest you get. If you don't get one of those crazy, ugly, hairless cats, those Sphinx cats, Russian blues are second best. So it's funny that Kilmowski gives him a rash.
He's allergic. So we return to Sandalwood Cottage, which is the Clappers, and we see a lot of Brian's skin.
Ugh.
It's just...
I don't want to see Brian's skin. I don't want to think about Brian's soup.
I'm going to give you some marriage advice to all the people listening. If the person you're married to is going out after you're in bed and not telling you where, this is a bad thing.
Yeah. Maybe she's just happy to see him go.
She's like, where were you? And he was like, I was out. And so he mentions, he asks about Barnaby here, and he calls him Dixon of Dock Green.
Yeah, so what's that a reference to?
So it's a reference to a television show in England in the 50s to the 70s. It lasted a long time. About a constable in London who was named Dixon. He's a constable who kind of solves all the crimes and, you know, his superiors aren't exactly sure what's going on. This is what I got from reading.
Because doesn't he say Dixon of Dock Green and his fascist sidekick or something like that? Yeah.
So that's what happens, and that's what Dixon and Dock Green is. Brian goes out again. we never actually find out where Brian is going.
Not those 2 times.
No.
Not the night of the murder or that night. He's going out for a walk.
Walk.
Wah, walk. It sounds like wank, but
No, he actually says wank later on.
yeah.
Next day, police canteen. Gerald's missing car has been found. Max Jennings is
Missing
still. Let's go talk to Bouncing Barbara. Right? So you have to
you do the hand
You have to do the hand gesture. And they go to talk to Barbara Neal, who
is young and beautiful and clearly sort of terrified and bad at lying.
But I'm glad they didn't do like she's got a low cut top on.
No, she's not
looks like a
vivacious or
professional
anything. No.
person.
Yeah.
She says Max was afraid of Gerald. So now we're like, wait a minute.
Okay, Gerald's afraid of Max. He doesn't want to be left alone with
And
him.
Max
No,
is
wait a
afraid
minute.
of
Max
Gerald?
is afraid of Gerald. And then Troy says, maybe they were afraid of each other.
Yeah.
In his wisdom.
Troy asked if Laura and Gerald were banging each other, to which Barnaby's like, you have such a picturesque turn of phrase.
Well, this is the 2nd episode in a row. He said banging.
Yes. No,
Or
it was
bonking,
bonking.
sorry.
This is banging.
Sorry.
They've moved on to the more 90s term of banging from bonking. And then Barnaby says, I'll drive.
Yeah.
Next, we're talking to Laura Hutton, who gives up Honoria right away.
Oh, yeah.
Right?
That she stole the newspaper from June 78.
And says she wasn't banging Gerald. She passes the house in the middle of the night.
Because she couldn't sleep.
She's a bad sleeper.
It's what you do.
She's a creeper. She's not a bad sleeper.
She's a stalker.
Okay.
I mean, if I can't sleep, the last thing I'm going to do is get dressed and go outside and walk around
To my boyfriend's house.
to look in his window.
Multiple nights. She sees a woman get out of a cab, goes up to the door, has a key to the door, goes in.
Clearly a prostitute. You could tell by the way she walked.
Clearly a prostitute.
Because they have that walk.
They have that walk.
Even though it's a giant prostitute. Like a 6'2" prostitute.
It's Gerald in high heels, and he has to bend down to go in the door. And then she goes, and this is a weird bit of writing. She goes, I was aroused. Well, not aroused. I'm like...
Alert or something like that. Curious.
Why was that even in there?
She didn't want to sound like she was interested.
And then she goes, no, I was not angry.
In the most angry tone that she can. She says she wasn't angry.
She goes, a matter of fact, I saw Max Jennings leave drunk. The light went out upstairs. And then she saw Brian Clapper. This is the next night. And she goes, I don't want to be seen outside of Gerald's house in the middle of the night. Then don't go there.
People might misunderstand it.
Because you're a creeper. They go to interview Brian Clapper. And he gives up the name of the play. That's the best piece of information he gives up.
This is another, it's a Brian gem.
Slang Wang for 5 mute voices.
It's only a working title.
Just a working title.
Slang Wang.
I guess.
Yeah.
No, it's Slang Wang.
Slang Wang?
That's what I thought it was.
That's what I thought it was too.
Okay. What is a Slang Wang?
I looked it up. I couldn't find any references to Slang Wang except a guy on Facebook who has a very unfortunate name.
So this is where when he says, Troy says, where were you? He goes, I went for a walk.
Yeah. So they guess that he's off looking in Edie's window or something.
Brian has another class. Edie talks to him after class and gets all creepy.
Yeah. She needs to talk to him. But then he puts his arm around her and touches her bare skin, and it's just
not touching students.
Lech alert.
Back to the Barnaby house. Joyce loves the book. It's about a young Irish boy. He connects to the beginning of the episode.
Right.
There's sexual abuse. He runs away, and he's painted in a historical dress, which leads us to the painting.
By an artist who's rescued him. But then the phone rings to interrupt Joyce's reading to say that Max Jennings is dead.
Yes.
And has been for about 2 days.
They go to find Max Jennings in the cottage by the sea, and they find Bullard. Barnaby calls him out and says, what are you doing here? Yeah. And George is like, well, it's my case, and I fancied a day by the sea.
Well, because it's one of those, kind of tropes of a show like this that you just wonder, are these the only 2 detectives in the entire country? I mean, I know that the county is big, but there've got to be other detectives in the county other than Tom. But apparently not.
Some very good dead body acting here.
Very good. Though he breathes.
He does.
But he keeps his eyes super still. And that's hard to do.
He does. He does some good dead body acting. He's a professional.
Yeah. Shrapnel.
They go over the case again as they're driving.
Barnaby does that mid-game wrap-up like he did in Badger's Drift.
I'm glad they've stopped that.
Yeah. It seems too early, too, to be like, oh, here are all the players. One of them is the killer.
Exactly.
But they go back and see Barbara and they confront her. They take her to the station and confront her. And she admits that Max was waiting at the cottage for her.
Maxie.
Maxie. He wasn't going to Denmark after all. That was just a lie for Selena. And that Barbara was supposed to meet him at the cottage so they could have some time alone together because they've been having an affair. But when she got there, he was dead. And so she left. She ran away instead of reporting the body.
Yes. He threatens her with obstruction. And next we're moving on to Gerald Hadley's solicitor, which is the fantastic character James Joycelyn.
Well, but between those two... So Barnaby's got this rash, right? That's getting worse and worse. And he's always so calm. But when they're leaving, it's just the itch is too much for it. And all of a sudden he kind of like bends over on the path and yells, "God damn it, what's wrong with me?"
Wait until he has some of the marijuana.
Oh, the brownies.
The brownies.
Yeah, in the later episode. That's funny. Yeah, they go and see Jocelyn, the lawyer. Now, I have to say, okay, he's an awesome actor, and he is the only recurring character who appears in 3 episodes playing the same character who isn't part of the cast, the main cast.
He plays the same character?
He does. He plays the same lawyer in Written in Blood, right, which is in 98, and then in Death's Shadow in 99, and in Orcus Fatalis in 2005. Ooh. And he's all the same lawyer. He's the lawyer of Coston, apparently.
I guess so.
Yeah. I have to tell you this. I was very excited to find this out. So Timothy Bateson, the guy who plays Jocelyn, the awesome eccentric lawyer, he was the voice of the worm in the labyrinth, the little one with the little blue scarf. Okay. It says, "Come in, meet the missus."
Yep.
Does the voice of that. And he also does the voice of the guards in the labyrinth, where Sarah's in front of the 2 doors, and they're kind of like playing cards almost with heads top and bottom. Yeah. One of us always tells the truth, and one of us always lies, and they give her the riddle.
Yep.
He does the voice for them too.
Oh,
Labyrinth was one of my favorite movies as a kid.
As it should be. So we find out that Gerald's stinking rich.
Yeah.
He's got like £2.5 million in cash. He's got a bunch of paintings.
He's richer than that, okay? Jocelyn says that we know he's got an apartment in London. And Joyce has already told us that this apartment looks over at the Albert Hall, right? We get that reference from the book. So Jocelyn says that he's got this like $2.5 million that he's giving for scholarships. That's like the bulk of his estate, right? So I went on the old inner tubes and tried to find an apartment that was as close to Albert Hall as that apartment later is revealed to be.
Yes.
5.5 million.
5.5 million pounds.
In 1998.
In 1998.
Yeah. So
Gerald had some bling.
He had some money and apparently got undercut for this apartment because it was worth about twice as much as they estimated it to be.
I would have thought he would have got some better lady clothes then.
Yeah, you'd think that butterscotch colored dress and bad wig.
He needed better.
There's no accounting for taste, though.
I guess no.
He might have had a lot of money and no taste.
So he leaves the painting for Lauren, and then he leaves Amy 100,000 pounds.
Booyah!
Booyah!
She can get away from Honoria.
So we're off to Gresham Hall to tell Amy she can get away.
Yeah. Oh my gosh, she's so happy.
She's going to be rescued from Honoria, even though Honoria nursed Ralph back to health. We don't know what happened to Ralph.
She didn't successfully nurse him back to health. She took care of him until he died.
No. And we learned that Honoria was in the study, not in bed.
Right.
Like she said.
On the night that Gerald died.
She says that she hates it here, and then they call Honoria out on stealing the newspaper. Honoria very carefully shows him the paper, which has
the HMS Leicester.
The HMS Leicester on it.
Ralph's boat. Yeah.
Only shows that to him.
And, you know, Tom is good. Tom is smart, and he's observant, and why he doesn't notice that she so carefully and deliberately folds it over and then hands it to him in a way that suggests, "Thou shalt not unfold this paper."
Well, he does. He gets in his brain. He just,
but he doesn't realize it
it's
until
the
later.
allergies. He's not thinking straight.
He's got the cat cooties, I guess.
He's got the cat cooties.
Yeah.
So then they leave, and Honoria's insanity is really shown here.
She takes over cutting the vegetables for dinner.
The vegetables.
Whatever that thing is.
What was it? Daikon radish.
That's the
what it was.
closest thing we guess that she's cutting. But she starts talking about blood and bone.
Blood and bone.
Okay, because Amy is cutting vegetables for dinner, lets Honoria take over, and then when crazy Honora has a gigantic knife in her hand, that's the time Amy decides to tell her, "I've just inherited a lot of money and I'm leaving."
By the way, I'm out of here.
Yeah, because Honoria
she
is
just
not going to be mad.
No, no. Like, you're not the boss of me.
And we see the psycho light in her eyes for the first time.
Absolutely.
Blood and bone, bone and blood.
Barnaby and Troy find the cabbie that drove Gerald home. But we don't know it's Gerald.
She was an ugly woman.
But she had awesome legs.
Yeah.
She had lots of makeup. At this point, the penny drops for Barnaby and he figures it out.
Yeah, because they know where the car was stolen from, and it just happened to be near a certain club.
But Troy does not understand what's going on. He's like, so this woman went to his house and stole all his clothes? Why would she do that? So they go...
Well, because they haven't been able to figure out why Gerald didn't report his car missing as soon as it was stolen and why he reported it later. And now we understand why he didn't report it right away, because he was in drag and didn't want to call the police while he was in drag.
Exactly. So they go to the gay nightclub. First of all, the moment they step in the gay nightclub, the theme of Midsomer is being played in a sultry saxophone.
Yeah. Which is awesome.
There's HIV and AIDS flyers, clear condom information, and statues of bare-chested men. Okay? Then the barman, that's how he's referred to in the credits, shows up and says, "We're not open." Clearly a transvestite.
We're not open.
It should have been, as
Eddie-
you said, it
Eddie
should have
Izzard.
been Eddie Izzard.
Yeah, he would have been great in that little bit part.
So, transported to the Barnaby's bedroom, and Tom thinks that Troy may have had a seizure.
Yeah. Did they ever tell us what the name of the club was?
Nope. Name of the club is not given.
That's an opportunity missed.
Yep.
It must have been great.
Brian Clapper's boob sweat. I don't know what it's called. So.
But we go back to Joyce and Tom going to bed, and where's the cat? Well, the cat's in his bed. Kilmowski is trying to kill Barnaby.
Yes.
With the allergies.
He's absolutely trying to kill Barnaby. Brian, so this is where it gets cringy.
Let's cover it fast because it grosses me out.
It's so gross. Brian goes to the estate to see Edie in her house, which is a total setup.
She's mixing him drinks. She's got a short leather skirt on.
It's a total honey trap. They take a bunch of pictures of him.
Who takes the pictures? Who is that man outside the window? It's not one of the students. It's a grown man.
And then a package arrives the next morning with the pictures in it, and he realizes he's in trouble here.
And Sue's talking to him about all kinds of other things, and he suddenly says, "You shall shut up!"
He's just so mean to her.
Well, he's freaking out.
He is. Bullard reports back that Jennings died from the wine.
The wine which had thallium sulfate in it.
Yes.
Right?
So, and that wine that he drank at Gerald's house.
Yes. Because, okay, so thallium sulfate, if you don't know, it used to be used for rat poisoning, but in the U.S. we banned it in 1975, and the U.K. did about the same time because, quote, it's indiscriminate killing.
Oh, nice.
It's flavorless, it's tasteless, it's colorless, it quickly dissolves, and it has this nice delayed effect.
And we see Gerald keeps it in his cupboard with his spices.
Yeah, so it would have been outlawed in the UK 20 years before.
Well, you know, as a gender bender, maybe he needed it. Gender bender,
Yeah,
as Troy says.
As Troy says. The other thing, though, so I was kind of nervous even looking up thallium sulfate,
And the death of your spouse.
like how many mysteries have we watched where somebody's Google history has been used against them? Well,
I'm not drinking wine. Right?
She's conveniently looking things up the night before. But the thing about thallium sulfate that's interesting is that so it only takes about 1/8 of a teaspoon to make somebody sick and about 1/4 of a teaspoon to kill them. So it doesn't take a whole lot. But the way that thallium sulfate, it kind of became sort of the cyanide of its time in terms of fiction. Mm-hmm. It became super, super popular as a way to kill people because it was colorless, tasteless, odorless, and for a while wasn't really detectable because of the symptoms being so delayed. And then they look like a lot of other things when they start. So it's like stomach upset, neurological problems, headaches, you throw
stumbling.
up. Yeah, stumbling.
Bonking,
all that kind of
Betty,
stuff. Yeah.
Barbara.
And it actually was used to kill a few people in real life. And a lot of people point their finger and blame Agatha Christie for that.
Oh.
Because do you remember The Pale Horse?
Yep.
Which is the book that Christie wrote in 1961. Where
That's
there's
the one with the witches.
The witches, exactly. They're using thallium sulfate to poison people because it looks like witchcraft. Because all of a sudden these people come down with these mysterious ailments and it's delayed.
And I bet you they can cure them instantly.
There is, I can't remember what it is now, but there's a chemical that you can give somebody. If you know for a fact that they've been poisoned with any kind of thallium salt, there is an agent you can give them that kind of nullifies the impact pretty quickly because it takes it up like potassium in your body. That's how thallium tricks your body.
Yep.
But after Christie published that book, which was, of course, hugely popular and it was everywhere, there was this big increase in thallium poisoning.
Oh.
And everybody said it was her fault. Niall Marsh put it in a book before her, but it wasn't as big selling. Yeah. So we can blame Agatha Christie for Gerald. Maybe he was an Agatha Christie fan.
Maybe.
You know, he was a writer.
He was.
Maybe he had the thallium as a fan thing. You know, because you do.
Agatha Christie, official thallium sulfate.
Poisoning kit.
Yes.
Yeah.
Brian heads off to school, and it's not good.
No, that's that whole scene.
They demand $5,000 because he's a middle-class dude. I don't.
They pretend the honey trap was part of their coup de théâtre.
They have his boxers though. So the pictures only show him topless, but he must have. And so this is where it gets into problematic terms because what did Edie do with him? Okay.
Enough that he was naked.
Enough that he was naked, and that's a long way to go for a joke.
Yeah. Or even blackmail that she'll then have to share with everybody else.
And he yells at them, calls them scum.
Oh, he loses it.
And they say, we're going to have to go to plan B. And they post the pictures.
To the same sign that we see in the opening scenes.
And Brian does his weird laugh. And that is the last we see of Mr. Brian Clapper. And, you know, he's horrible. He gets his just desserts. But what happens now? Like, I hope Sue publishes her dragon book and goes on to be a bestseller.
And leaves his ass.
Leaves his ass and finds a person of indeterminate gender who loves her.
Yeah. And Hector.
Yes. So we head off to Albert Hall and park right out front.
Yeah, so I did some research here. Where they park their car, that's not a place where you can drive at all. No. You really can't drive up to the Albert Hall at all, except on one side where they like load things.
But they're driving all over the place.
Oh, yeah. They pull right up on that little bridge with the stairs.
Because it's an emergency to get into this empty apartment.
Yeah.
So they go in. Barnaby's like, go this way, go that way. They're trying to figure out what happens. They realize that it's from the book and that Barnaby's putting this all together. And then the show kind of shows its age in two ways here. The first way, Barnaby says he's a transvestite or a transsexual, whatever the term is. Those are all very different things than homosexual.
Yeah.
And whatever Gerald was, it's Gerald's choice, and we respect that choice. But transsexual and transvestite are not the same thing.
No.
And they are not the same thing as homosexual.
But they also don't have Gerald to ask.
They don't have Gerald to ask. And I just was like, oh, Tom, you almost did it.
Yep.
And they figure out that Max Jennings essentially stole his life story.
So Max was a psychiatrist before he became a writer. And it's clear that he based this book that's currently a bestseller on Gerald's life that he only knows about because Gerald saw him as a psychiatrist.
So
and
then
it's just such a breach of confidentiality.
Yeah. Troy says, I'd kill him if he did it. And then a constable shows up with more drag, and they go, what a surprise. Now, Troy loosens up a little bit because he tries to drag on.
Well, he doesn't try it on. He holds it up to him.
He holds it up to him. So at least he's helping. And they find the Navy News, the exact same Navy News.
Yeah.
And with a badly photoshopped picture, we see Gerald and Ralph.
Yeah.
Dun, dun, dun.
Suddenly the connection is made. So one thing that confused me in the apartment, and we're nitpicking, that's what we do. We're maniacs, so we watch really, really closely, right? They say that these portraits that were done of Gerald by this artist who sort of rescued him are really, really valuable, right? So Gerald has one, the portrait that we've seen over and over again that's clearly Liam.
Gives to
Laura, yeah.
Yes.
He bequeaths it to her. But there are like 4 more in the apartment.
Yep.
So how many did this painter paint if he had enough to sell that were worth so much money, and yet still 5 of these portraits?
Gerald had the bling. He had a lot of money.
No, I'm just wondering, like, as an artist, how much of a career can you have if you only ever paint one person in different costumes and you keep 5 of them?
I don't know. And where does the artist go? That is a huge, ginormous...
He's dead.
But how does he die? And like, I wondered what happened with the artist.
In his Rococo apartment.
So one of the things they say as they're going into the apartment is it's storming, or there's a storm coming.
Yeah.
Because we're now back at Castle Frankenstein.
In Gresham Hall. Yeah. We got to go confront Honoria.
First of all, earlier in the episode, Troy asked Barnaby if he's seen Frankenstein. Who has not seen Frankenstein?
Yeah, Barnaby says no.
And then later on, now, is it Tom or the new guy who is the Hammer fan?
The new guy.
It's the new guy.
It's John Barnaby who's the Hammer fan.
Okay.
Yeah.
So it might be okay, but he's not seen Frankenstein. But then, okay, Frankenstein, not a lot of it happens in a castle.
No.
There is a castle. He's alive, right? But a majority of it happens in a windmill, and like it's not a movie with an eerie castle. But
Troy's not real smart.
No,
it's not like he's No. I mean, he could have said it looks like Dracula's castle, but there's lightning.
Yes.
So
back we go to Castle Frankenstein, Gresham Hall,
where
and
Amy is making a run for it,
and she finds Gerald's stuff.
Right, the suitcase that Honoria has packed the night she killed Gerald with all of his drag clothes because she doesn't want anybody to discover
that Ralph and
Gerald were gay and that they had a relationship.
We're doing the gay stuff in Turkey.
What does Gerald say? He had me and I had him.
Yeah.
Which is like, you go, Gerald, you tell her.
He's like standing up for himself.
And then she whacks him with a candlestick.
This is where the lighting makes sense. With Honoria in the storm.
It being so dark, yeah.
And she calls him my darling Ralph. She goes to see Gerald. This is all told in sort of past tense. So disgusting. She goes nuts and kills him. And
then strips him naked.
And then says that Amy should have died too.
She stripped Gerald naked.
Yeah. And
after bludgeoning him in the head with a candlestick so much that they hardly recognized him, she took off all his clothes.
Which I don't understand. Like, as a person, it's difficult to take off clothes of somebody who's asleep. Not that I have any experience doing that. But I would imagine
It's difficult as a woman to take off an evening dress and tights and everything else when they're on my own
I bet
body.
he had hose on too.
I know he did. They showed that he
Yeah?
had pantyhose on. So never mind taking them off somebody else. But, you know, if you're going to go to that extent, you may as well put some shorts on him so that it doesn't look so suspicious.
So Gerald had all these women's clothes,
A whole wardrobe full.
a whole wardrobe full, and what he had on, and yet she takes the middle suitcase and puts it all in it.
Yeah. Well, she's a good packer.
I guess so.
The Lydiards are above reproach.
I guess. What follows is the slowest chase of two old ladies in the house ever.
Because Honoria loses her shit.
So Amy takes off and Honoria follows, shuffling along. They're both shuffling. It's not the best filmed chase scene.
Yeah, because Honoria is doing the slow, steady walk of the killer. Like, it doesn't matter. I don't have to hurry because you're never going to get away from me.
And for some reason, Amy goes, no, I'm not going to go outside. No.
The many doors that must lead out of that house.
Instead of going outside, I'm going to go to the locked room and find the secret of the locked room. I don't.
When a killer's chasing you, never go up.
Yes.
Go out.
Go out, and weave.
Yeah, zigzag.
Back and forth, zigzag.
Like a crocodile's chasing you. But it's just Honoria.
She gets the key. She opens the room. She goes in, shuts the door, and finds the shrine.
To
Really,
Ralph. It's
the
Ralph's
tomb.
It's Ralph's bedroom.
Yes. And we find Ralph.
Yeah.
Which, now, that's a pretty good fake dead body.
It's not bad.
It's not bad. We only see him. We see his hands and his skull. The rest is covered in clothes.
It's
but-
like it's Psycho.
Yes, it's very much like that.
It's Bates. It's Mrs. Bates.
We can only assume that Honoria brought the body back to England and didn't take it to the undertaker or a doctor or anything. Put it in this bed and has been caring for it ever since. Then Honoria breaks the door right out of The Shining.
Yes, she does. Because, you know, it's this great big manorial house with doors made out of cardboard.
And she goes through it like wet paper.
Yeah.
With what?
A knife.
I don't know.
She's got a knife.
She sets something down. I don't know what it is. It's not an axe. But then she sticks her face in the door, like clearly.
Here's Honoria.
Here's Honoria.
And she does look really scary.
She does.
She's got those eyes.
So she reaches in, she opens up the door, and she says to Amy, you're going to jump out the window. This is what's going to happen.
Yeah. Amy's like,
And
no.
Amy's like, no, I'm going to fight. There's going to be scratches. People will know. And Honoria says, I don't care. I'm going to kill you.
Yeah.
So then.
Like, all bets are off. Honoria has lost her shit.
This is it. This is the big fight. Amy makes her dexterity check, dodges Honoria, who goes straight out the window.
Yep. Onto the ground.
Onto the ground.
In the rain.
In the rain. Amy suddenly teleports downstairs.
Wouldn't you?
I guess.
Because now the police are there.
Just as Barnaby and Troy show up.
Like Honoria's head hits the concrete, bonk, and Troy pulls up. They just missed it.
And we get the final penny, which is Ralph had AIDS.
Yeah. Well, if you read the subtitle, he had eggs.
He had eggs, yes.
Which is why all this time Honoria keeps saying, it's your fault. You should have died, to Amy, because Amy didn't contract it, obviously, which tells you a lot about their relationship. I don't think it was a true marriage. I think they were partners. And
So maybe Amy and her $100,000 and Sue Clapper should just go off and make the book.
yeah.
That would be a
They
fantastic
should just
ending.
go off and be happy.
Exactly.
I've got a question for you.
Yes.
Which corpse is the best corpse in this episode? Is it Gerald, Max, or Honoria?
Well, okay. So
Because Ralph is out of the running, I have to say, because Ralph would be the best corpse.
yes, and Liam's father doesn't count because
No,
we
'cause we
don't
don't see
actually
him.
see his corpse.
Right. So Gerald, Max, and Honoria, who's the best corpse?
I gotta say Max.
Why?
Because his eyes. He does the eyes.
The
so well.
bloodshot, nasty.
He does the eyes so well, and he doesn't move like a stitch.
Yeah.
He's not dead guy in a crop circle, but he's
That's
pretty
later.
good.
Yeah.
He's pretty good.
Yeah. I agree with you. I think Max is pretty good, though. I got to give the foot double some cred.
Yeah, the foot double was pretty good. Honoria just lies there, like
and breathes. She also breathes.
She could be, well, you know,
she's probably still breathing because she just fell. If they'd gotten there 30 seconds later, maybe she would have fallen on Troy.
Could have been.
That would have been interesting.
Gender bender.
Or she would have fallen on the hood of the car.
We end up at the Barnaby house with the big reveal that Tom is allergic to cats, which we all knew already. They just leave the back door wide open.
People do that.
Okay. Are there no bugs in England?
Apparently not. If you watch all the home improvement shows in the UK, they're constantly putting those big accordion bifold doors in their back. And like, look, this room is half inside and half outside. Like, yeah, and so are all the bugs. They don't seem to mind.
Apparently the cat goes in and out. I did notice that Barnaby has a Boots bag. So he's been to the pharmacy. He's been to the chemist.
He's got the medicine.
Yep.
Because he's got cooties from the cat.
That's the end of that episode, which I gotta say is not as strong as the pilot.
But it's got scumbag.
It has Brian Clapper.
As unnecessary as Brian's whole storyline is, it is iconic.
It is. It leaves a bad taste in my mouth because yes, he gets his desserts, but I want to know what happens to Sue.
Okay, you're so sentimental. But the reason why it leaves a bad taste in your mouth is because Brian is so thoroughly gross, and that's because of a great actor playing a really well-written part.
Fantastic actor.
Yeah, he is thoroughly scumbag.
Yeah, absolutely. In fact, whenever we see him, we yell out scumbag. Like, not on the street or anything.
We don't see him on the street.
But when we see him in other shows.
We go, scumbag! Scumbag! We say it lovingly.
Yes, yes.
And Anna Massey goes on to play another role in Midsomer where she's not a psychopath.
Now, Anna Massey is in Morse. She's in Lewis. She hasn't been in Endeavor yet.
She's been in 2 Midsommers. She won't be in Endeavor because she's dead.
Oh, she's dead?
Yes.
I didn't know she was
died
dead.
in 2011.
She's dead.
It would be weird if she was.
Oh, that, yeah.
She'd be playing the Ralph role.
Yeah.
Ugh.
Anna Massey's dead?
Yeah.
Oh,
It's sad.
I thought she was still alive.
No, she had a long career.
But she shows up. It's interesting that the next episode she shows up in, I forget the name of it.
Secrets and Spies.
Secrets and Spies also has another doctor in it.
Oh, there's a teaser for us.
There's a teaser for you.
So if you disagree with us about who the best corpse was, or if you noticed anything else interesting about Written in Blood, feel free to leave us a comment.
We will fill out the show notes with all the things that we mentioned, so have a good look in there. And
what's our next episode?
Our next episode is Death of a Hollow Man, which Joyce is a rough one. Joyce has been pretty good so far. She's made some bad food.
That one's been in the news, too.
Yes, and that's been in the news.
Yes.
Death of a Hollow Man is next week, and I will say goodbye, Maniacs.
Bye, Maniacs.
I gotta stop saying that. I gotta stop saying so. Yes. So when so, 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 and so, 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 so,
So
so, 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 she,
yeah.
so, so,
So
so,